Hi, family. Welcome back to Concrete Pastures. I'm Nancy Muma Sinkala. All right, guys. Oh my God. I'm so excited to have my girl back on here. Yes, it's not. Oh, hmm. Guys, last time she was here, we talked about everything. Okay. For anybody who's new, being an immigrant has been both challenging and extraordinary life that has changed up all of our lives. She's no stranger to an immigrant life. And this space allows myself and others and her to share our stories as we deconstruct the world's view of immigrant status. We unlock the joys, the laughs, and the bravery that being an immigrant or dreamer brings. Please subscribe, share, like. Oh, stay a while as we dive into today's episode. My girl Muma is here. Okay, the CEO of Krypia, an African Fintech providing financial services to CMAs in an info. Geez, you see, I'm so excited about this. In an informal sector, she also owns an AAFS, the first
African Art for Spaces.
Yes, African Art for Spaces, the first immersive investment art platform dedicated to increasing the value of African art for the savvy collector. Muma also enjoys the skills to empower women to take up space, which is why she's here. She's also going to talk about that. She is an executive leader in Africa and UK. She continues to use her skills to influence in niche sectors such as mining and international development. She is also a speaker on multiple international stages such as Oxford Union and also a board member on 2 charities promoting the use of technology and business skills for disadvantaged women. Welcome, my sister.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. You don't even understand. It's just an honor and a privilege to be back on this most inspiring and amazing podcast centered around women, immigrants, and I'm just so grateful to really be here today. Thank you so much.
Oh my God. I'm so excited to have you. For anybody who hasn't heard her story, Muma Sinkala's episode, the first one was in our first season, episode 8. You get the full journey of Muma's immigrant story. And she gives a lot of tips. For any of you that haven't traveled yet, that are contemplating and you're thinking of going to the UK, she gives a lot of amazing tips. Okay. I would listen to that episode before you go. But today she's here to talk about Krypia. She is the CEO, like I mentioned. And for anybody who doesn't know what Krypia is, could you just share with us what Krypia is?
Yes, thank you so much for that glorious introduction. Sounds like I do many, many, many things, but I do.
You do.
I do try to not do multiple things, but you will once I start explaining what I do, you will see how what everything I do is connected. It's literally an ecosystem. So my life is literally centered around justice and equality and fairness. And so 2 years ago, a group of friends and I decided right after the pandemic to look at the financial institutions in Africa. Are they fit for purpose? When I say are they fit for purpose, are they fit for Africans? Africans today, the global African. And when we talk about the global African, we tend to think of people in suits, highly educated, PhD holders. People rarely think about that auntie who sells vegetables on the streets, that uncle who's a fisherman, that uncle is a carpenter, that lady neighbor who's always sold poultry for 20 years, raised chickens, sold eggs around the neighborhood. Those are people you rarely think about. When you think of a global African leader, you think of people in suits in government, working in government jobs, right? So if the financial world today is creating products for the person that I mentioned first, the person wearing a suit, high heels, going to work, who's creating financial products for the everyday African? We're talking about the people I just mentioned. And before I go into all that, I'm going to explain what Krypia is. So Krypia was born from this question of who is creating financial products that are fit for the everyday African. So we are a financial services platform that was created for the purpose of creating products for small and medium enterprises or small and medium businesses all around Africa that are informal. How do we create products for these people who are normally sidelined? No products exist for these kinds of people. So what I mean is, how many people who are in the informal sector can open a bank account? How many of them can access a loan from a bank? How many of them have a bank card? And what's the difference in their life between them having a bank account and a bank card? What difference would it make to their business, to their livelihood, if they had that? If they had access to a small loan, even if it's worth $200, $100, $500, what is the difference in their business life if they were able to access such things easily than what they have to go through now? So, before we created this organization, I just want to say that we decided to put our egos aside and to challenge ourselves to realize that what we know is nothing, and we're starting from nothing, and we're going to put ourselves in a position of learning with the people that we are creating products for. So we didn't want to lead with the idea of, oh, we're here, we're diasporan. So the team consists of people in the diaspora and people in Zambia. And we didn't want to lead with, oh, we're just going to create products, because how can people who are informal not have products? So here you go, here's a digital bank account. We didn't want to start with that. We wanted to learn on the ground what the problems are. And not just the problems, what are the opportunities? Because Africa is a continent of opportunity. It's ripe with opportunity. And I think if companies that are being created are created from the perspective of learning, understanding, and growing together, and also capitalizing on what Africans already do, there's a huge opportunity that exists for people both in the diaspora and people in Africa to share knowledge and grow together. And so that is what Krypia is, a financial services platform created for small and medium enterprises that are in the informal sector in Africa.
Nice. So if our audience had to go on your website, what type of products do you guys offer?
Okay, so to begin with, we decided in order for us to learn African behavior when it comes to finance, to learn what Africans who are in the informal sector actually needed, we needed to do a lot of interviews and find out what it is that is their biggest pain point. So what is their biggest problem? And the biggest problem that over 250 small businesses we interviewed said was that they can't access money. If I want to be able to go and get a loan, it's so hard for me to get a loan. Why? Because they say that I do not qualify. Why? Because I don't have a payslip. That was one of the biggest issues. So we said, okay, but if your business, and normally these, by the way, the small businesses that we support are not just small businesses that are starting today. These are small businesses that have existed for over 2 years. They're profitable, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, even some of them. So these are profitable businesses that take kids to school. Some people, mothers who sell vegetables, have been able to take their kids to University of Zambia. They've been able to take their kids to Monash University in South Africa, different universities around the world, from that side hustle, informal business that you thought was a side hustle. So when we realized that their biggest issue is access to finance, we were like, okay, let's put our money together, let's bootstrap, and let's put a money in what seemingly looks like a hole. So I want to give you some statistics before I go ahead, because I'm a fan of statistics. So in Zambia, we have, I think, roughly over 20 million people as a nation. 87.7% of all employment in Zambia owes itself to the informal sector. Can you believe it? Over 60% of these people cannot access formal financial services. So when we say formal financial services, I mean going to be able to go to a bank and open an account, going to be able to go and get a formal loan, just because you happen not to work in government, you happen to not work in a private sector organization. So that completely disregards you. And then if we break that down even further, you've still got the statistics on women. Women, whether they're in the formal sector or informal sector, are highly marginalized in terms of accessing loans. Even when you're educated and when you have got that big job, it's still much harder for you as a woman, let alone if you're single, to be able to access certain types of loans and products. So now imagine that woman in the informal sector. What are her chances if that woman who's educated finds it even harder? So these are all like the problems that people in the informal sector in Zambia are facing. So if in Zambia 87.7% of all employment owes itself to the informal sector, in Africa over 80% of all employment owes itself to the informal sector.
Yeah.
So that shows you that this is a pandemic, not just in Zambia, it's an African problem. And for us, we decided to look at it as not a problem. It's both a problem and not a problem. It's a problem because a huge group of people are being left behind. It's not a problem because a huge opportunity exists, because it tells you there's an answer somewhere that's not being answered by somebody. And what I mean is those people there are either working in a certain way that current products refuse to acknowledge, or current systems refuse to acknowledge. And so they just continue working in the same way and existing, because when we interviewed all those businesses, our biggest question was, if you're able to, if you're saying that you can't access a loan today, how has your business survived for 5 years? On average, informal businesses in Africa can survive, if they're really profitable, can survive for 10 years, even 20 years, being informal and profitable and never having formalized. One good example of this is my own mother, whose business literally brought me to school in the UK. My mom's business was informal for close to over 10 years before she formalized it. And that tells you that my mom's story is not unique, because I think almost the whole team, almost each and every one of us in the team has got a relative, a mother, an auntie who's runs a business in the informal sector that's profitable and has been running it that way, and that's put her kids through school. So we noticed a pattern, and we were like, we want our first product to be a loan product. The reason it should be a loan product is the loan product will allow us to learn behaviors on the ground. It will allow us to speak to why people do what they do, why people borrow how they borrow, when they don't pay, how they pay. And that will then predict what our next product will be. And that was what we did. And we learned some absolutely fascinating details, which obviously is proprietary information because I can't share that for free with everybody. But one thing I'll just speak to is the fact that what we learned on the ground shatters all the ideas that have been written on Google about the African informal sector. So in the informal sector, the biggest reason major banks cited as to why they cannot create, for example, community programs where they give loans out to the informal sector or to individuals was that the
risk,
huge gap of them not paying back the money.
The risk factor.
There's no way of them predicting the ability of these people being able to pay. And if I tell you the statistics that we found, they're quite shocking and quite amazing as well, because everything that they think isn't the case. So all I'll say, I will say up to now, if you're interested, reach out to me. We're open for collaborations, partnerships, opportunities that create products for people in the informal sector. And if you're truly interested, as a taste away to see what I'm talking about, please join us onto the next product, because I got to tell Nancy about a product that we've created next. So that product has basically been created because of the loans and the behaviors and what we saw. And
you have shocked me right now.
Why?
No, because from the time from our first conversation, so I look into SMEs back home, and every major bank, you and I in the financial industry, so we know how loans work.
Yeah,
you get a loan, you pay back with interest. Back home, when I reached out to the major banks, about SMEs and what's being done. And I was doing a lot of research, even some other friends that are in small business, they already were shutting me down. I'm like, no, I'll find out for myself. Let me reach out. I reached out to major banks that are top, and I talked to the top people. And the response was the risk factor. If someone wants something, it's so many layers that has to go into. I'm like, for $1,000, someone has to go through that many layers.
Yep.
So you guys are solving that problem.
We are. And we've been solving it. And I just feel like, really, first of all, a heart of gratitude that God allowed us to look at our own problems and see how do we solve these problems from a people perspective, not just any people perspective, because there's also a danger when you're educated, which I feel is a very big issue too. There's a danger when we're educated to default to education to solve our problems. When on the day-to-day basis, the reality of that Vanamalikit, that uncle who's selling in a Kandemba, the reality is they do not care about you explaining to them what a business plan is, what SDG goals are, because on what they're thinking is, if I give you fish, how much are you giving me back? That's what they're thinking about.
Language.
They're not thinking about SDG goals. They're not thinking about ESG. They're not thinking about, climate change or, all these fancy words in finance that we talk about, balance sheets and all these things. They're thinking, if I give you 500 kwacha, what are you giving me back? That is basically what they're thinking about. And so how are current financial gurus, financial literacy programs, financial product companies, how are they making products that speak the language of the daily Zambian person? And I can speak to behavior so much in a way that I've always been fascinated by psychology, because I feel like...
Could you give us one example, please?
Of psychology?
No, one example of the behaviors with money, because...
Of the behaviors with money. I always... Okay, let me think. What can I think about? I've always been fascinated with psychology, because when you can understand why a person does what they do, you can then figure out how to solve their problem. You can't go and solve their problem without understanding what was the root cause of why they started behaving this way. So I'm just going to give you a little example of, and it's going to be generic. It's not going to just be Zambia. It's going to be Africa. Of course. When you think about Zambians, okay, let's go to Zambia first. When you think about Zambians in general who work for the government, who work in organizations, if you ask any bank on a monthly basis, how many times does an average Zambian person use their bank account? Other than the last week of the month and the first week of the month. In between, what happens? Zambians withdraw all that money from their salary, and it's normally either used in their mobile money wallet, right? Yeah. Or they're either holding the cash, this is a real thing, or paying off debts, because that's like what they're doing. They've paid off debts, so immediately they get paid, that money is going to pay off other debts and stuff like that. Or if the very rarely are a majority of Zambians saving, if they are saving, it's not in a physical bank. The saving is happening in a chilimba somewhere. Yes. The savings are happening physically, keeping the money at home. And that tells you what is the behavior pattern there that's continuing to happen that no one's creating a product for. Or forget about creating a product, that no one is looking at, watching and listening to, so that they can learn how to respond to that behavior. Most organizations are being reactive, not proactive. They're just reacting to, okay, we've got ESG goals, we've got SDG goals, we've got climate change. They're just reacting to the global market, but not to the local market. And one of the best examples of this for me is the actual financial industry in Africa on its own. It rarely looks at Africans' methods or African behaviors of finance. So as Africans, before white people ever colonized us or came to us, we had our own way of doing things, which was based on Ubuntu. Ubuntu is, I am who I am because of who you are. What that means is, Nancy, if I'm, let's say my mom says to me, Muma, we don't have salt today, go to Nancy, go to Nancy's mom. go and borrow some salt, as just an example.
Yeah.
Nancy's mom owns a small shop around the corner. Tell her we'll pay her back at the end of the month in 2 weeks. Nancy's mom is not going to say, no, this is a business. Nancy's mom is going to give me that salt and expect Muma's mom to come to her at the end of the month and give her the money. That concept doesn't exist in the world, in the West. You cannot go down to a bodega in the US or to a supermarket in the US and say, can I get salt for 500 kwacha? I'll give it back to you in 2 weeks. That does not exist. And the funny thing is, I'll give you also like a polar example of this. So the point of that, what I'm trying to make in Africa, is that we have our own cultural systems that exist. And those have seeped into how we do finance. And those were never considered when financial institutions were moving from the West, these big banks. They were moving from the West to come and establish banks, physical banks in Africa. They just told all Africans to open a bank account. Africans were willing and happy to open a bank account, but they actually had no actual training of what a bank account should be used like. You know, how does it benefit me? What is it? What is its real benefit on a day-to-day basis for me? How do I use it? And guess what? It reflects itself even in formal education. Highly educated Zambians still do not use bank accounts the way they're supposed to use them. They're still getting paid and using their bank account only when they get paid and in the first week when they have to pay rent, but the rest of the time they're not using bank accounts on a daily basis. That shows you there's a behavioral link there. It goes back to the Ubuntu thing. Then let's talk about credit scoring. Credit scoring is not an African concept. Africans have never thought, let me go and get a mortgage first. Let me go and get a loan first. Then I'll buy a land and own a house. Africans have always saved and then bought a house and built one and then used that house to finance themselves. They've either let out the house, let out their land, and that's how they've made money. And African society has always been about ownership. It's never been about debt first. Debt is an American concept. It has nothing to do with Africa. And that was enforced on Africans, and guess what? We're crashing. Zambia is one of the highest countries with default rates, apparently. Again, I don't know where these statistics come from, so I'll say apparently. It has one of the highest default rates in the world. So if yeah, apparently. And again, to me, I'll still speak to the fact that a lot of the times the algorithms, the people doing these statistics against Zambians or Africans are not African. What methods are they considering? What behaviors are they considering when they're saying that you default really quickly? Are they considering, like I gave you the example of, Muma's mom will borrow salt and say, I'll bring it on the 31st. You know, what behaviors are they considering in that kind of relationship? And based on what I'm telling you now, when it comes to like lending and credit scoring, Africans were used to this behavior pattern of being able to lend to each other. And in fact, a lot of the times there was no interest involved. There was more work in kind involved. So if you gave me salt, it's likely if my husband is a plumber, he can help you whenever you need help with plumbing or whatever. That's the kind of society we lived in. So when credit scoring came along and now Zambians can get mortgages, can get Range Rovers on debt, on loans, what they didn't factor in is the fact that these people culturally have their own way of doing things. And if they have their own way of doing things, these people are going to find it very difficult to understand the concept of paying back something on time. What is on time to you is not on time to them. When you say you need to pay back the loan by the 1st, if their child happens to be sick, or their, for example, their child happens to be sick, or something happens in the family, or even if something that doesn't really happen in the family, whatever they may consider to be more important in that moment will overtake paying back that loan, because for them, family is more important than paying back a loan. What they don't understand is in between the concept of interest, the concept of you're going to have to pay back a huge amount of interest because you've defaulted. What is defaulting to a Zambian? What's credit scoring to a Zambian? These are questions financial industry should be asking from a behavioral perspective that they haven't even incorporated in their algorithms and in their financial, and this is not a Zambian problem, by the way, it's an African problem.
Yeah, so I was about to say that. I'm like, what is interest to an African person?
Exactly. So, and I was just going to mention that the example that I gave you is from an African perspective, which is behavior in terms of credit scoring and how financial institutions actually came into Africa. But then you've got the other side. In the West, you've got organizations like Klarna. I don't know if other people who will be listening to this podcast will know what Klarna is. Klarna is a fintech company that basically allows you to borrow an interest. So you can buy shoes from H&M and then pay for them 3 months later with interest. The West is saying, oh, buy now, pay later is a new concept, fascinating. This is not a new concept to Africans. We've been doing this for years. The only difference is ours really didn't involve that much interest or no interest at all. So these kind of systems tell you that people have always behaved a certain way. They've always done things. Nothing in the world is new. It's just an improved version of what's been previously done. So for you to be able to create things that matter, you need to look at respectfully indigenous knowledge. How are people on the ground working? What are they doing? How can we support them, you know? And then you can create with them new products.
So yeah, how have you been able to incorporate our cultures into your program?
Ooh. So you said program, so now I'm going to tell you about the program. So the first product Krypia created was a loan, and then the product that is next derived from the loan. So once we realized, we looked at the behaviors and what is happening, we were like, we want our company to truly reflect. We literally said Krypia is a financial services platform that creates financial products for small, medium enterprises by looking at African methods of finance. When we're talking about African methods of finance, we're talking about you doing village banking. Village banking is a concept all over Africa, the diaspora, African diaspora in Africa. We're talking about women. What behaviors culturally do women in Zambia in general use when it comes to finances? What do the statistics or the interviews that we're having with them right now, what are their biggest concerns? When you look at the dynamic of an African family unit, who does the actual finances? If it's the woman, what are the things she's prioritizing? What's she looking at? And those are the questions we keep asking ourselves. And then we're embedding small features into our products that speak to these things. So the next product that we've created is called the Krypia Small Business Program. The Krypia Small Business Program will be launching in a couple of weeks. I'm going to share with you the actual date soon. But the Krypia Small Business Program's aim is to close that gap where African methods of finance have not been considered in modern financial literacy. Modern financial literacy talks about financial literacy from the perspective of the West. So when you go to school, university, they teach you what a business plan is, they teach you what credit is, they teach you what debt is, but none of those things talk about, again, African behaviors. None of those things talk about a chilimba, a village banking setting, the behaviors that go on in there, the modern African families, or even the older African families. What are some of the concepts that most young African families today have taken from the past, from their grandmothers, from their aunties, their fathers, that are being reflected in how they do finance now? You know, so when we're seeing how they do business, how does their own personal life spill out into their business? And how do we help them to recognize this in a way that speaks to how they already work? Not trying to disrupt how they work, trying to embed ourselves, morph ourselves as a business into how they already work so that it just matches, you know? So you're not forcing them to break themselves down to suit you. You as a business are being innovative enough to think, how do we create something that speaks to the person who doesn't understand a credit scoring system, but you now create a program that shows them what that means to them, what impact it has on their children, what impact it has on the land they own, what impact it has on their businesses, and how do you then turn that thing that may seemingly be a negative thing for them, how do you turn that to make it something that they take back as their own power, to show them that they can use this same thing to empower themselves, you know? So these are the kind of things that we're speaking about in our small business program. So our small business program is going, I'm not going to lie, it's going to be really elite. So when we say elite, we're not saying elitist. We're saying elite in that we have literally put our blood, sweat, and tears in this, because we, instead of like going to look at what financial literacy programs exist today and copying them. We literally sat down ourselves, looked at all our learnings from the loans that we gave out, the behaviors, the different patterns and times and things that occurred, and then created a financial literacy program suited to the modern general day-to-day Zambian. So a person who can apply to be in the small business program could be a fisherman, could be a carpenter, you could be
You just
an
answered
actual.
my question.
Oh, you were going to ask me a question? You could
Yes,
be, but
because
the idea is
if
we
you guys
want to
are not
formalize as
requiring,
many businesses. Yeah, go on, sorry.
if you guys are not requiring a business plan from a marketeer, what are the requirements for me if I'm selling tomatoes by the side of the road and
So
I
we do
need some
not
extra cash to buy more tomatoes? What are the
so
requirements?
we do not require a business plan, but what we do require you to do is to be able to tell us in your own words what your business is, how profitable it's been, what are the struggles that your business has been through. We don't really want to know. I mean, it's good for us to know you as a person, but think about your business as a separate entity. If you're a business person, it doesn't matter whether you're educated or not. You run a business. You know what your business is. If you're a marketeer, you wake up at 4 a.m. You know who your
You have to go
customers are,
early.
what
Yeah.
you buy, right? You know those behaviors. So putting all those biases aside, we're saying, come as you are, tell us, what is your business? My business is this. On a day-to-day basis, I sell something like 100 tomatoes. On a weekly basis, those 100 tomatoes, they translate into 5,000 kwacha, 3,000 kwacha a day. That 3,000 translates into a weekly amount of this. My customers are currently sitting at 20 customers. Okay, out of those customers, I've got 2 actual businesses that I supply, small general dealers and maybe a local shop. But the rest are all just mothers. And this is the plan that I've done, and this is what I've done. And then we consider you. We have a look at what you're doing. We have a look at what
How
opportunities
long?
in your business, how long you've had your business is truly important to us, because we cannot determine profitability if you're saying you've only operated for 12 months, 6 months.
So no startups.
Less than 12 months. Well, technically 2 years is not 2 years is a startup. You may think that you are established in 2 years, but really you are starting up, because the opportunities that exist for you to expand your business, you normally wouldn't have reached them in 2 years. Very, very rarely do businesses scale so quickly. It takes at least 2 to 5 years for you to even break even, right? For you to even break even. So really, 5 years is a startup, So we're saying, if you're a business and you really want to scale that business. So if you're saying, I'm a person who sells chicken, I rear chickens, I've got 5 chickens or 10 chickens, I want to make them 25. This is the plan that I have to make them 25. This is what I've done so far. This is where I failed. I said with 5, they all died. I got another one. I got a male and a female, whatever. And this is how I've managed to bring them back to 15. Then you show us that, you know what, you're tenacious. You're ready to work. This is what you've done. This is how you've managed to get back your money. We want to hear your failure stories that tell us the truth about how you solve problems, how you get back up, because that's what business is. Let no person lie to you. Business is not smooth sailing. Business is not even about just profitability. 90% of the time, business is about struggle. It's about not struggle like in a bad way, but it's about the difficult things you go through that help you decide what your next product is, what your next move is. Those are very difficult decisions that derive from hardship, in your business. The tough times when your suppliers are not supplying you the product properly. What do you do in that situation? What have you done in those situations? So we're inviting every type of Zambian to be able to apply to be on our program. When we say it's elite, we mean we want our program to be the go-to when it comes to African financial literacy, because it's our program is holistic. When you learn through our program, you will not only be learning by learning financial literacy theory, you will practically be applying it every week. So it's a 6-week program, but you'll be applying practically every week the things you learn and coming back and showing what you've learned to everyone. So at the end of the day, this is about empowering you, not just giving you a fish is teaching you how to fish. You won't need Krypia 2 years from now because you would have scaled. You'd have gone from 25 chickens to 100 chickens in 2 years. How do you project that? What are the opportunities that exist? And then on top of that, we are saying once you come to the Krypia SMB program, you become a lifetime member. What that means is, if Krypia has created partnerships with government organizations, which we're doing right now, we've created partnerships with major businesses around the world, in Zambia, in other African countries. What does that mean for you if, for example, you're a person who rears goats and you happen to have raised your goat rearing from 10 to 100, maybe in a year or in 2 years, and you now want to start supplying to Congo, and it so happens that one of our business partners is Congo. We want to give you the opportunities to be able to pitch your idea, not for you to get money, but for you to get supply contracts. That's even better than us giving you money.
Yeah.
That means you can feed yourself, scale yourself, and the opportunities that exist are huge. So this is why I'm saying, like, if you are a business person thinking, I've always wanted to impact financial literacy or finance in Zambia. We are a bank. By the way, we're open to working with banks, whatever organizations, people, individuals that are really have an honest interest. That is why our next product, which is launching in a couple of weeks straight from the small business program, is called the Diaspora Peer-to-Peer Lending Platform. The idea for that platform is for you to be able to see all the vetted businesses and for you to directly fund them. That thing that you were asking me, where I'm just a marketeer who may not necessarily have maybe certain skills, but I want to be able to be funded with, 1,000 kwacha or $1,000. That's all the money that I need. And there's somebody in the diaspora who's actually got this as savings. They've always wanted to kind of start a business in Zambia, but they're not business savvy. What platform exists that can support them to be able to do this? We're doing all the due diligence on the businesses on the platform, so you know that your investment will be legitimate. So yeah.
No, I love it. I'm excited for the program to come out. I can't wait. I know you're a genius, so I'm biased because you're my sis. So I'm biased.
This is not my. Let me just say, my team might kill me. This is not my work only. This is work of like a team coming together and truly, being united in our goal, being united in our view of the future for Africa, the future of finance for Africa. I feel like it's really time Africans stood up and created products that really work for their own people. There's a difference in us having investments from the West and having people come into Africa and invest in us. But I think it can't be that it's always that it's the Western people who are coming to create all these great products in Africa. We should be creating them ourselves because we understand our problems better.
1,000%. I agree with that. Last time on our first episode, we did talk about village banking. Is that incorporated in this program as well?
So village banking is not incorporated in this program. Our goal is this Krypia SMB program, the first cohort will be fundamentals. So we're going to be running 4 cohorts every year. So our goal is to scale at least 100 businesses each year. So just to give you an example, the first cohort will be a 6-week program. Once that's done, we'll have the next cohort, and they might be a higher level. So this one might be fundamentals. The other one might be much more advanced than the original one that we had, so that we can be able to attract various types of small businesses. Because like you mentioned, for example, a person who's in the informal sector selling poultry is completely different from a person in the informal sector, for example, selling minerals.
Yes.
You understand what I mean? The level of technicality maybe and also need is completely different. So as each cohort comes, we'll need more different kinds of collaborations, partnerships that speak to various businesses. There are people who are running informal travel and tourism businesses in Zambia. What opportunities exist for them to scale those businesses, be seen by the Ministry of Tourism, for example, stuff like that. These are the kind of opportunities we want to open up. So if you're in such kind of sectors, please reach out to us. Our goal is to scale 100 businesses and actually formalize them and help them become sustainable. We want to be the program that is, when you think, okay, I have started a business. It's been working really well, but I don't know how to move my small business from Mufulira to all over Zambia. How do I do that? The first thing you should think about is, how do I apply to get into the Krypia SMB program? Because you know that it's guaranteed that you will not only get support, but you know you will get in the opportunity to be able to actually scale.
So someone is meeting you for the first time here. They don't know who Muma is. They haven't listened to our first episode together. What would you say? Because the buy-in into Krypia, I already have a buy-in into Krypia because I know you. What is your background? That you guys
okay.
decided?
So that's actually a very important question. It's so true. Okay, so my buy-in is I'm gonna say that I sell the truth, really. I feel like amongst leaders in companies, you won't find a person who's more herself than me. If I don't know an answer, I'll be so honest and just tell you I don't know what this is. But I am Zambian. My background is finance. I did financial investment and accounting in university. I worked in a bank, an international bank, for over 10 years. I worked in retail, in corporate banking, fraud, technology and operations. So being able to lead an organization that's actually focused on using emerging technology to be able to change the landscape of Zambia is really important to me, because I got to see finance from I worked in central London, the central hub of finance around the world. I got to see how finance is done on a daily basis from a retail perspective. If you imagine, I started working in a bank from the position of a cashier. So I understand business and finance from the perspective of the customer I'm speaking to, the general person, like the smallest person, the customer face to face, what their needs are, what, behaviors they portray, straight up to corporate. How does the enterprise or a corporate organization work? Like, when you're dealing with retail, where you're facing customers, is completely different from corporate, where you've got like different departments working with maybe other third-party companies to deliver different kinds of products. So I almost am like perfectly positioned, because I understand the machine of finance in a inside out perspective. And then on top of that, I grew up watching my mother run her business. Not only watch her, my mother was very adamant about involving us in her business. So whenever she was doing supplying of products and stuff like that, she'll make you count the money, make you invoice, make you go to like offices with her while she's pitching an idea. So all these things, I feel like it's only now as an adult that I realized that I was being groomed in advance to actually be an excellent leader and businesswoman, because I was watching what she was doing. And I never realized until recently that I have always been so confident in my skills about business, and I've always known that at some point I was going to run a business. And it's only because of my mom I realized this. I was telling a story. I was recently interviewed by the Financial Times, just putting it out there, name dropping, because I feel like name dropping is important sometimes, especially as a woman who's Black, because
For sure,
when you're in rooms like corporate finance or creating an organization like what we're doing with Krypia, people need to know that you're a verified person whom they can trust. And the Financial Times is one of the, if not the biggest financial newspaper in the world. They deliver news on finance. They would not just interview a person who's not legitimate or who they do not think is actually making a difference in the life of other people. So we were recently interviewed by them, and it was a great honor. And if you have a dream and you just try, just use your knowledge and be willing to learn and fail fast, you can do it. And that's what we've been able to just like go with this, and it's creating a difference in people's lives. So yeah, that's who Muma is. So on one side, my complete knowledge is in finance, but like I said, I wear many hats.
Okay. Last time you were here, you also spoke about African art for spaces. How is that going?
Ooh, child. I sound like Kendra. Yeah, so African art for spaces is has been phenomenally accepted. So in December 2022, we hosted our first major exhibition. We had over 10 African countries represented at that exhibition. We partnered with the Zambia High Commission hosted us in Kensington, and it was really successful. We managed to raise over £10,000 for a charity in Zambia called Our Moon that supports children getting scholarships to Ivy League schools around the world. And really, it was, first of all, eye-opening because it was difficult. It's very difficult trying to break into an industry that you're not known in. You pretty much are learning on the job. It was very scary, I'm not gonna lie, but it was really amazing to curate an exhibition for the first time. The exhibition was called An Ode to Joy in the Midst of Resilience, and it was an ode to Blackness. It was an ode to how, as a people, we tend to still exhibit joy despite the difficulties that we go through, and it's reflected in our resilience, whether it's in the way we do our hair, the products we make, the struggles that we face as immigrants that we overcome, the struggles that we face in our own countries that we overcome. And I feel like that's the story of a Black person. It's being joyful whilst being resilient. And I wanted to really reflect this, especially from the pandemic, that we had all just gone through this very jarring, very difficult period. And the artworks were so beautiful. And this is what I feel is beautiful about purpose. The moment you start walking in your purpose, things really align exactly as they should. I remember asking each of the artists to create artworks just based on the title only. I gave them an idea of what I was talking about when I said an ode to joy in the midst of resilience. And then I said create artworks. And I didn't consult with any of them. I just wanted to see the artworks at the end. They all kept asking, Muma, should they be a certain size? I was like, African Art for Spaces is the place where you come to increase your value as an artist. And it's the place where collectors get to meet. It can be something that is led by what you see in the world. It can be something that's led by how other people are doing it. You do you, and let the collector who loves your work find you. You know, and this exhibition was powerful because once we put these artworks in a room, I'm gonna try and send you pictures after this. Once we put these artworks in the room, Zambia House, do you know what happened? It was like the artworks were talking to each other. Nigeria, artists from Zambia, South Africa, and their artworks spoke to each other, even though these people had never met. Wow. These people had not communicated with each other about the artworks and how they, you know, they were going to do their own artworks. And so yeah, and I just thought, wow, this is absolutely fascinating to see your work come together. But it's not about me. Seeing these artists who are often underrepresented, these artists struggle a lot of times to make themselves known, but they still find it very difficult to be seen by collectors. So the inspiration comes actually from them, for us to use technology to be able to close that gap for them so that people can find them. But also, again, going back to doing due diligence, ensuring that these artists are who they say they are, their artwork is highly valuable, and we make sure this artwork is highly valuable by making it one of one. So all the artwork that is displayed on our platform that artists bring to us, they can never create again. So if you're buying a piece from us, know that that thing is going to increase in value because it is one of one. It's going to increase in value. We're offering you the opportunity to think as an African person, what opportunities financially exist in owning art that you were not taught? You think all these Western people are collecting art just for the purpose of beauty? No, majority of people are collecting artwork for the purpose of generational wealth. So if you're an African person and you're thinking about generational wealth, think about what opportunities exist in the African art world for you to grow your financial value too. And if you're thinking about that and wondering, what is she on about? Go to africanartforspaces.com or email me at mulishani, MULISHANI, at AAFSart.com. Mulishani at AAFSart.com. and you will be able to get answers from us. You can sit down with our advisory team, and they can advise you on the different, like how to start collecting, especially specifically for investment purposes, or even for beauty, because African art should be valued as highly as Western art. And I just want to say one last thing about walking in purpose. When we approached the Zambia High Commission to do the exhibition in December, something happened at the end of the exhibition that was really profound and a surety for me that we're on the right path with African Art for Spaces. Do you know what happened? I happened to Google the address of Zambia House, which is 2 Kensington Palace. And then I got to find out that that house is a home. It's a house. So when you go into Zambia House, an actual estate, it's made of complete marble. The walls are beautiful inside. Wow. This house was made in like 1903 or something like that.
Yeah.
And this house was owned by Sir John Everett Millay. Sir John Everett Millay happens to be one of the Renaissance artists. So he's one of the top artists in the UK who started a movement called the Raphaelite Brotherhood. So when you're thinking of people like Picasso, when you're thinking of, you know, surrealism, all these different kinds of forms of art, he was one of the godfathers who created his own form, and that used to be his home. And you know, it was unbelievable to me because I just couldn't, I literally got goosebumps thinking about this. I was like, what would have been a young Black person like me in 1924, or something, standing next to Mr. John Everett Millay? What would he have thought of me, my skin color? What would he have thought of all these Black artists from different African countries that have managed to bring in his home, hang them on the walls? How powerful is that?
That's very powerful. And
could those people take up such? It gave me chills. I just asked myself, could these people ever have taken up such space? And if I hadn't taken the initiative to say, why should an African artist not be valued in the same manner internationally as a British artist, a Parisian artist, an American artist? If I hadn't said, do you know what, Muma, have courage. Just try. You may not know everything, but just try. It speaks to just trying and walking in whenever you see an idea and an opportunity and a gap, do not wait for other people to fill that gap. I think you should be the one who tries to do it, or find other people who join you on your journey to try to do it. And that's what I've done. Same with African Art for Spaces. I've got other people who are working with me. I don't believe in being an island, because no man is an island. Everything we do is communal work, and that is what I love about the way I work. I work with collaboration.
Yeah, and you definitely do. I can attest for that. You definitely.
Yeah, and the more you collaborate, the more people you can reach, the more you can make your product greater and greater. And if we can all work like that, we could change so much. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, and you can do so much more.
Yeah, I love that proverb. You, my sister, are amazing. You always drop a lot of wisdom when you are here. Running businesses is hard, it's tough. You're running a business from London, and you are expanding it to Africa, especially your home country, Zambia. What type of challenges have you faced or are you facing in this space? So from Krypia to African Art for Spaces.
So many challenges. The first challenge I would say is time differences, first of all, and also working remotely. Working remotely is a challenge in itself, because sometimes your clients or even your team can find it challenging or difficult. But like I said in a like recent interview that I had, the more the world grows digital, the more globalized we all become. And if we're all thinking of creating products that are going to compete on the international market, products that are going to change and shape the next industrial revolution in Africa itself, we need to jack up and start creating products that match what's happening in the world. And remote working is with us now. The pandemic has given that to us, and there's no going around. And the faster we embrace it and embrace those challenges and learn and fail, we always, at Krypia and even African Art for Spaces, we're all about failing fast. Look at what you're doing, fail from it, learn. Okay, so we failed. How do we do it better? How do we change it? And that is like our motto, trying to fail fast and learning from what our failures are. So that's been the most challenging thing. Another challenge I would say is that I personally realized is that even though I've been a co-founder in these businesses and a leader in these businesses, I realized that I was almost always the woman only. And I had to ask someone and ask myself, am I perpetuating the same behaviors or ideas unconsciously that were in the previous organizations that I worked in without even realizing it? Because how can I have, for example, an art business and then the females that are being represented in the exhibition are less than 40%? You know, so I feel like it's a question of being actively honest with yourself and learning from it and then changing those things. Even within the team, like, you know, at Krypia, I had to ask myself again the same question. Our team has to really consider that, do we want to be more men than women, or do we want to work in a way that allows us to have equal or equitable people in the team? We're not just, and also not just from the perspective of gender, from the perspective of disabilities. One thing I've challenged the team to think about is, as we're creating products, I truly want us, if we're thinking, for example, about online products, yeah, not easy. I know, like I mentioned again in my previous interview, being a woman, of course, is a challenge, but I try not to see it as a challenge. I don't think it is for me. I think I'm just a person. But it doesn't negate the fact that it is. No, it doesn't negate the fact that it's a problem and it's a reality. I'll go to conferences and I will find that a lot of the times I'm the only woman, or one of two women, or one of four women, and they don't even look anything like me. So of course it's an issue and it has to change. When I say I try not to look at it that way, it's because I know for myself that I'm making those changes, and I have the power to be able to enforce those changes within my own business and to talk about them in those rooms that I go into. Never do I go in a room and not think, which friend should I put on? I always put on my friends. Whenever I think, okay, I happen to be at Parliament, or I happen to be in this room where there's like a really important person, and I think, who can influence this business? I think, what other Black woman can I think of that should be in this room with me?
You are very good at that. I
Yeah.
applaud you for that. You're very good at that.
Thank you.
All the time you highlight.
We should all be like that, because again, we keep talking about diversity of thought. It's genuinely true. The more your business has people that can think differently, the more you can create genius products that are innovative. That's it. It's business. It's not just about diversity to look good. It's for business. The more you can have somebody who's from Zambia, somebody from Ghana, somebody from Puerto Rico, the more you have various ways of working that innovate what you do. So
yeah, no, really, really good. You and I have spoken about business a lot. How do people set their expectations for business? Because when we start a business, you want to win. You want to sell to everybody. And I'm one of those people, you know.
yes.
How do we set our expectations when it comes to business? You've been doing this for a long time.
All I might tell you is, frustration is calling your name. Literally.
Yes.
Business is frustrating, is what I would tell you. Business is not for the weak-hearted. Business is not for the part-timers. Business is not for people in it for the short haul. I mean, people can challenge what I'm saying about the short haul, because there are people who create really genius products, then they scale them up pretty quickly, and then they sell them. But what they don't tell you is how much of themselves they kill themselves in those 4 months or whatever of scaling that business, how they don't sleep, they don't eat. Like, it's absolutely giving themselves completely to this business for that couple of months for them to even do that. So that's the reality. I feel like once you decide to start a business, you need to really be honest with yourself about, one, your lifestyle. Your lifestyle will likely change. So if you're in a formal business working for somebody else, you've got a fixed salary, you know how much it's coming into your pocket every month, you know that you don't have to go specifically sell anything. Whether you sell or don't sell, you're getting paid. Right? So it's good. You're thinking about your pension or whatever. When you have your own business, you really have to consider how you're going to survive. You have to consider how you're going to, in general, like running your household, how you're going to eat. If you want to maintain a certain lifestyle, how do you intend on maintaining it? So a lot of times what most people will do is they'll be working a side hustle while they run their business. So they'll be working a part-time job while they run their business. Some people work for years, save, knowing that they will need this amount of money to survive every year. Then maybe they take time off of work for 2 years and dedicate themselves to that business because they've saved enough for them to be able to be paying rent or whatever, or surviving for that period. So it allows you like freedom to be able to have a breather, like to just focus on your business. Or if you don't have those options, you have the option of, if you're lucky enough to be from an African community, speak to your family member. If you, for example, you don't have kids, you're not married, you have the opportunity. That's actually the best time. You have the opportunity of like staying with a sister or staying with like your mom. Even if you're married, I mean, if you've got a nice mom who's like, I'm living by myself, you guys come and stay with me while you guys try to hustle your business. One thing I'll tell you about business is put away pride. Ain't no pride in business. Put away shame that you have of, oh, we're going to beg my mom for food money or whatever. Sometimes in business, you have to do what you have to do. And that really, the biggest lesson that I learned is in business teaches you how to ask for help. If you're not asking for help in terms of surviving, you're asking for help of your own personal survival. You're asking for help in terms of your business surviving. So you're asking for help from clients. Help me to understand why you didn't like the product. You're asking for help from actual clients. Buy my product, please, I beg you, because I think this would benefit you and this is how I see it benefiting you. You're asking for help from your friends. Guy, can you please connect me to that contractor, because I think we'll be able to supply him this. So putting away your ego is truly important, because humility will get you into many rooms. It will get you into better positions that will allow you to step up your business. And sometimes the difference between going from point A and point B in business is just being able to be supported by somebody for a small phase, and that requires a lot of humility to say, I need your help. I don't know how to write a business plan. I need your help. I may be a genius at mathematics or coding, but I don't know anything about how to pitch a business idea, or I've started this business. And also truly understanding that you cannot be the jack of all trades. So I've understood that I can be the CEO, but I can never be the CTO. I can never be the UX designer. I can never be the marketing manager. I can never be the cashier or the project manager or the receptionist, because somebody else does that job better than me. And I do my job better than somebody else. So you have to know what you're excellent at and then drill in on that thing and be very good at it. So if you want your business to survive.
Yeah, well said. It's a lot of hard work, dedication, sleepless nights, stress.
Stress, and also don't having a business is managing your expectations by knowing that no one owes you anything. You can sell the product, but maybe no one will buy, but maybe someone will buy. Try not to have too many expectations. Of course, it's important in business to have expectations, because you need to focus how much you want to earn, how many products you want to sell, but try not to like pitch all your eggs into one basket thinking that it's going to sell immediately within 5 months is what I expect. Try to have no expectations. Try to go with the law of attraction, where you just do your very best. Make your product to the best of your ability, excellently, knowing that you've put your blood, sweat, and tears in it, and then give it, and have not too many expectations or no expectations at all, and see what happens. It works out better that way, because even if you happen to do an event, let's say I'm curating an event and only 2 people come to my event, I'll be so grateful because 2 people came, because I had no expectation of those 100 people coming. those two people came, and I know that those were the important people. Those were the people that truly needed this product, truly needed this business. And the funny thing about business is, try not to look only at numbers, because in business, a lot of the times, the people who sell your product isn't 100 people. Sometimes one person tells 50 members of their family. That's the person who sold more than the 100 people that you saw who are physically in your business. Do you get what I mean? So sometimes it's a domino of word of mouth, and it's family members or whatever, the person who tells everyone.
Friends,
Just
yeah.
look at yourself, your favorite product. How many people have you ever told about your favorite product? You probably don't even know. There's one thing that you really love, whether it's an ice cream, whether
Yeah.
it's a type of shoe or whatever, you've probably told at least 10 people, and those 10 people have told 50 or 20 people. And how many people do you think you've influenced from you as one person?
Yes, not even going too far. I mean, I recently had an event for ZNBS. 50 people RSVP'd between the online and in actually texting back and forth. I was a bit crashed
Yeah.
in terms of the turnout of how many people showed up. But I had to think back as to everybody confirmed, because I spend so much energy,
Yeah.
so much, and it's a product that is going to benefit everybody
Yeah.
that's doing something in Zambia. And people confirmed and still didn't show up. My expectations were like, okay, they confirmed. So people are going to show up. But
And then they didn't.
and then they
How did
didn't.
it make you feel?
I was honestly demoralized, to say the
Yeah.
least, because I was so passionate about what they were going to talk about and what they are giving to us in the diaspora, that it's going to benefit so many people. That's the reason why I had approached them, and that's why we're working together. And when people, even when I had explained to the people that I had invited, they were so excited about it. Oh my God, this is going to do this for me. This is going to do that for me. This is going to do. But the people that showed up, they did spread the word. And I had to be grateful for that. I literally woke up with like a hangover type of stress, not even like drinking or anything, just like
You were so
hangover.
tired.
I
Yeah.
was mentally exhausted. And
Burnout.
the expectations that I had to go back to the whole drawing board. And you hit a point for me as to uh, manage your expectations, and also the people that show up, those are the people that actually do sell. And they did go tell um, other people in our community. People couldn't make it for different reasons. The timing
Yeah.
maybe it was a teachable moment for me as to next time. And there's always a lesson in everything that
You
we
know,
do.
one other thing I've learned about events,
Mm,
Nancy, my exhibition, I'm talking about it as a success today, but when I did it, I felt a failure. I felt it wasn't successful. Numbers that I had in my head were absolutely mental. I was like, but when I sat, like, after a couple of months of like really feeling sorry for myself, and I sat down and reflected, I was like, girl, what are you talking about? A year ago, you did not know anyone at Zambia High Commission. You did not manage to bring 100 people into a room. You did not manage to help raise over £10,000 for an organization.
wow.
Over a year ago, you didn't do all these things, and you're acting like you failed. You didn't manage over a year ago. You didn't know any of the artists on a personal level. You didn't help them bring, be able to exhibit in central London for the first time, for some of them who had never even exhibited, outside their own countries. You did that, and you were an individual on your own dime. You were not funded by an organization. You were not funded by a government organization or anything. You just did it all by yourself. And I was like, you know what? It's so funny how we've been programmed to believe that what failure is. I think that's also another really important conversation to have with ourselves.
Yeah.
What is failure really? We think failing is like you say, people not turning up. I think failure would have been you not going ahead with your event when you decided to plan it. Do you get what I mean? Failure would have been you walking out of that room when you saw it was only 2 people. Do you
Yeah.
get what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I think as well, that failure is now. And I realize that we really need to reframe what our idea of failure is, first of all, because then you'll be able to know how to deal with what we think it means once we feel we failed. How do you learn from that? I just feel like also another huge thing that doing events taught me, whew, events are a baptism of fire, guys. It's not as easy as it looks on the outside. It is crazy.
No, it's
What it taught me was it's always better. And like the program that I'm telling you, the Krypia Small Business Program, we were fighting with, should we scale thousands of businesses because it sounds amazing, looks good, because imagine if we scale 1,000 businesses. Whoa, that's huge impact. Is it though? If one out of 1,000 businesses, only one scales? If you can drill down and have a very small amount of people that you impact, those people will impact, like I mentioned to you, one life can impact 50 people.
Do you
10
know? That's
people.
what I had to go back to. So I went on my notes. I wrote what went right, which was a lot of my community, Concrete Pastures community. They spreaded the word. When I talk about spreading the word, they spread the word. We did advertising. We did all of that, and then I had to think back as to if we had all of the people show up and no one signed up for the program, that's not a success.
No, it's not at all.
So I'm like, okay, if people showed up, you can have a full room. People go like, oh yeah, they nod, and they ask the good questions, and they still showed up. We asked them, they showed up, but no one signs up. It's still considered a failure. So you bring up a good point as to, I guess, since from childhood we are used to grade 1, there's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and so on and so forth with the numbers. And there's always going to be, I want to win. I need to succeed. I need to be successful.
This is what success looks like.
This is what success. Yes, this is what success looks like. If I certain number of people show up, of course.
Can I tell you an analogy I saw on Instagram, which I thought was so potent and powerful? This guy was like, do you know what's the most craziest thing? Is that if you posted a picture today and you only had 20 or 50 likes, you'd be so upset. You'd be so upset only 50 people like my picture. But do you know how crazy it is if you were standing in the town square and 50 people walked up to you to tell you they like you? How weird and overwhelming that would be. He said, do you see how social media and digital has also created a false sense of an idea of what it means to be successful and also to be liked? We think thousands of likes means you are actually, wow, people are envying me, they like me, people are supporting. But it doesn't mean that. That is why you've got people with 10 million followers, 5 million followers, and they can't sell their product. And yet they've got 10 million or 1 million people on their page. So a number of followers or likes doesn't really translate into a good product or it's something that is supported. So it's the same manner. What I'm trying to say is maybe one thing you need to calibrate, which I'm doing with African Art for Spaces events, is making them niche, exclusive, and small, because then they're focused on the people who really want to be there. Do you know what I mean? You can get to focus on the people they're same as you, whatever you're creating, maybe focusing it down, making them smaller, shorter, sweet, so that the people in the room have impact. They all get to experience Nancy. When you're talking to them, it's a room full of 20 people, you're able to talk to them. And also it translates to cheaper costs for you because you don't have to book huge venues. You can have a small venue that's impactful, and those people then spread the word, and everyone wants to be at this particular event because it's so exclusive and difficult to get into because it is that good. That's the goal of the business program we're creating, and anything that we want to create. We want to create exclusivity, nicheness, and excellency around what we create, and that's what I think should go for.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Listen, it's always an honor to have a chat with you. Anything else you want to share that we haven't covered, maybe, that you'd like to share?
What else would I like to share? The time is now for Africa, really. I want to share the fact that, do you know that the youngest growing population in the world is in Africa? Do you know what that means? That means TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all these digital products, emerging technologies that are being created are being saturated in the West. That means the only place left to test them is Africa. If you're a young person in the digital space, even in the non-digital space, you should be thinking about, how do I take the business that I have, how do I take it and take it to the next stage? How do I, if you don't know how to take it to the next stage, think about what business exists out there, even if it doesn't seemingly look like it's good. How do I collaborate with them? And I'll give you a good example. I recently approached John Kalenga, the guy who has We Skate Mongo. And I saw a huge opportunity for African Art for Spaces to partner with him, because I think we're very aligned in our missions.
Yeah.
We want to scale African art. He wants to provide a space for young Zambians to not become delinquent through creativity. And what we're doing by, selling African art, but also exposing different African artists, is really directly related to skateboarding. Skateboarding is quite creative.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the students and the people there, they're interested in the arts, and we're working on something. We're just going to confirm our partnership very soon, but I think it's, phenomenal that I just thought this idea of partnering with an organization like that would really do a lot for them internationally, but it also do a lot for us in Zambia and even internationally, So learn how to use the relationships that you have to scale your businesses, but also to create new opportunities for yourselves. We may find that none of the things that we're doing today together are similar, but we can innovate and create something together. Nothing is stopping you. So be innovative. Think of who you can work with. Sometimes you may not even know in what capacity surely you will work together. But I think if you are aligned in values, you will find a way to make something work. So yeah, I just think as Africans, really think in the diaspora, especially, do not be left behind. Like for the Krypia diaspora peer-to-peer platform, I'm going to share a link with Nancy when she shares on her social media, where you can sign up to our platform to show your interest, and then we'll reach out to you in a couple of weeks once we launch the platform. But if you're showing your interest or you just want to collaborate, please reach out to us. There's so much opportunity in Africa, in Zambia. We are currently based in Zambia, but we're already in talks with other African countries to scale there. So you may be like, I don't want to really necessarily invest in Zambia, but I would like another African country. Talk to us. There's so many opportunities. So
Muma, I missed this one. I was going to ask you, what is the minimum or maximum you guys give for on Krypia?
For the loans?
Yes.
For now, our loans have been going up to $1,000.
Okay.
But after the Krypia SMB program, we're reevaluating based on the applications that we get, the types of amounts of loans people are looking for, and we'll be able to recalibrate it and increase it based on that. So going back to what I was saying to you, which is our motto is or business model is to learn as we go. Because you might be like, let's stick to the $1,000 goal, but then you look at all the applications that you've had, they're all actually looking for something like $2,000. They're all looking for up to $5,000. So we will adjust it accordingly. I don't know when this podcast will be produced, but we are in talks with a really huge government organization that supports small businesses in Zambia. And our goal is to work with them, because they're already doing this work, to sponsor, provide physical loan products and products to Zambians. So once this partnership is confirmed, this will be really huge, because that means you will need to go through a financial literacy program for you to be able to at least be able to scale your business and get the loan that you deserve, So it's not just about us, it's for you too. How do you learn in advance so that the things that you learn can be applicable and you can scale? We're equipping you not just with money, because what's the point of giving you money you don't know how to use?
It's true. It's true.
Because one thing I know is once you're blessed with the next your next stage, you need to understand that that next stage comes with its own difficulties that you're normally not equipped from your first stage to handle. So if you were selling 200 chickens, you're now dealing with 1,000 chickens, the problems that you have are now new. So you need to be able to fully understand, level up your mindset as well, level up the actions you're taking. It now becomes operational. It's now no longer a one-man thing. It's operational. You're looking at what team is working with you, how are you answering your third parties, how are you answering your clients, your customers, all this kind of stuff. So the things you do have to even be different. So you have to prepare yourself. It's not just about being able to access that $2,000, that 1 million kwacha, or whatever amount of money you need. It's about being equipped to be able to take yourself to the next stage and actually knowing that you have the mindset. Because another thing that is really important for a lot of entrepreneurs that they don't take into consideration is, how far are you willing to go? Some people think they're willing to go far, but actually they're only willing to go as far as 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. Do you know what I mean? Some people don't even know when they're willing to exit their business. Some people want to start their business not for a lifelong thing. Most people want to start a business so that it can just give them enough money to invest, and they don't want to continue doing it. Where some people want family generational businesses. What does that look like, and what does it take to sustain a generational business? It's not easy.
That's a lot. It's a lot of hard work showing up every day even when you don't feel like it.
100%. So you really have to think about this. And I think the people or the kind of families we need to learn from are Jewish families, Indian families. I truly, if you're thinking of creating generational sustainable businesses that run into generations, you have to ask yourself if that's the life you want. You know, but again, we're living in a modern world. Things are changing. Our parents had to work hard. You can work smart now. There are things you can do where you can, look at financial literacy. We create a new life for you. You don't have to die poor. You could have been born poor. You don't have to die poor. You can think about insurance and so many things, But yeah, that's another, I think, podcast when you invite me next time, talking about financial literacy from my perspective as an individual. I'd like to really talk to people more about that. But yeah, you can hit me up if you have questions.
No, for sure. Listen, you and I can talk for days, and I have more questions to ask.
Yeah.
Which is, you are part of. Listen, you do so much. So whenever I get this test of you here, I'm like, let me just ask all the questions, okay? Now that you are here, you are part of the Women for Refugee Women, and you're passionate about that organization. Do you mind just sharing a little bit of what your organization does?
Okay, so I sit on the board of an organization called Women for Refugee Women. It's a UK-based charity that supports and by empowering refugees who are seeking asylum in the UK to be treated fairly with humanity and equity. So when they're making applications for their visas, when they come into the UK trying to seek asylum, running from difficulty, how are they being treated? Are they being empowered to be able to know that being an asylum seeker or refugee isn't a burden? You're not a burden to anyone. You're running from circumstance. You're a human being. What programs and things do we create to help them soften the blow of being basically stripped of everything you knew? Being an asylum seeker means running, really, technically. When you think about it, you could have been a doctor last year, and this year you don't have a home. You and your children are literally here in another country just with your clothes on your back. Not knowing what the future looks like. So our charity is dedicated to supporting women who are seeking asylum in the UK. We create programs. We've got things like radical knitting. We've got art. We've got so many things, community programs that are created to support women who seek asylum, to make them feel empowered and to use their own voice as well to advocate for themselves, because no one knows their story more than they themselves know their story. So they get empowered in such a way that they're actually able to go to Parliament and tell their stories. They're able to go to Parliament and say, this is what the system you created, the application process you created, this is how it's impacted me. My children, these are the number of years I've had to wait in the system. So imagine how powerful that is. Being able to go into the news, BBC and stuff like that, being able to tell their stories if they accept and wish to tell their stories. Of course, we don't force the women because some women are running from violence and their faces can't be seen. So it takes a lot to really, it's a very intricate job, but I really feel like it's my life's work. Like it's one of the best work that I've ever done, being able to support such an organization that's completely dedicated to supporting women's rights, completely dedicated to changing the lives of migrants, being a migrant myself. I think this is really, really important work. And if you happen to be an organization who's looking for collaboration, or you're an individual who'd like to donate such work because maybe your granddad was a refugee, your mom, your auntie, you yourself, so you know what they went through and the impact it had on them, you can literally go whichever country you're in, you can go to the Women for Refugee Women website, and you'll be able to make a donation directly online.
I'll share all the links Muma is sharing in our show notes. What type of resources do you guys
yes
for the women?
So for the women, so one of the things that we have is we have drop-in centers. So one of the most important or key things for a person when they're seeking asylum, again, like I said, is to feel empowered. When you're reading an application form where you're applying to, let's say, get a new status as an asylum seeker, there's so many jargon, so many questions. Remember, some people know how to speak English, some people don't know how to speak English or even write it. It's really important for them to sit with a lawyer who explains what their rights are, what it means, you know, when they're making an application. What does even the word refugee or asylum seeker mean? You know, how you're empowered when you're looking at an application, you're answering a question. How do you answer it truthfully in a way that really reflects who you are and what your story is? You know, so all these kind of things. We've got drop-in centers, we've got radical knitting in between the waiting. Sometimes women are waiting for 10 years to get their asylum, 5 years, 1 year, 2 years. In that period, what happens to your mind? If you imagine you were a doctor who's come from another country and now you've got no job, now you don't know what you're going to feed your kids, what happens to you and your mind when you're in this situation where you're in limbo? You're just waiting in between what's happening to your life. So we've created various kinds of programs. We've created programs that allow the women to be able to do fun activities like radical knitting. So this is an activity that's not only an activity, it equips you as well. You learn how to knit. Knitting is a life skill. It means at the end of the day, you may not have to go and buy jumpers. You can make your own fashionable knitted cardigans, right? We've got art classes. So we're supported by one of the biggest art centers in the UK. It's called the South Bank Centre. South Bank Centre produces most of the film and the arts in the UK, and they've partnered with us, so the women get to like do spoken word poetry. This is an outlet where some of them get to tell their you know, their stories in form of poetry. Some of them get to perform like actual acting on stage. Some of them do art workshops. So there's many like services that we offer. One of the things that we're working on is financial literacy, but also helping some of the women who finally get their stay to be able to transition into the board. So, you know, empowering them to speak. If we're a women-run organization, how do these women get to be able to set the direction of the organization? So that, because they're in a better position to say, you helped me 10 years ago, and when I was an asylum seeker, I wish you could have done this and this. You know, so giving them agency and giving them the power back to these women to be able to create their own stories. So that's what we do.
No, that's amazing. What inspired you to join the organization?
What inspired me to join the organization was because I am a refugee. I'm an immigrant, and when I happened to have a friend who went through the asylum seeking process, and I saw how difficult it was for her, I was just like, as an immigrant as well, there's also layers that we don't talk about. When you enter the country, for example, as a student, when you enter the country because you happen to be born there from migrant parents, your experiences are completely different. These three people I've talked about, their experiences are different. The asylum seeker, the refugee, their experience is completely different. The way the applications you make are different. And it was this penny dropping that made me realize, whoa, there's a world out there that I had no idea about. It's so easy as an educated African. Sometimes there's so much privilege in that. Especially when you've been educated in the West, it's so easy to think that your story is everyone else's story. Like, that's how they all got there. And also some of our own biases that we have, even as Africans, when we hear somebody was seeking asylum, somebody was deported, what are the things you need to challenge yourself in your mind about? Because we always assume that it can never happen to us because we think, but I'm educated, or I am, I've got my papers. It can happen to anyone.
True.
It can happen to anyone, and I feel like this is what inspired me to, once I saw, like, I ended up diving into like the women's stories, reading their website. I was just like, I have to be part of this organization. It's so inspiring. That was it.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. You are doing a lot of amazing things for our community. Your passion just comes through. Me as your friend, I know what you do, and I'm always cheering for you, whatever you are doing. Social media, you share, but most of on top of that, you always encouraging and supporting and connecting. Your biggest thing is also connecting. You're such a
100%.
connector.
I've got an email that's literally called
Yes,
mtheconnector@gmail.com.
you are such a connector to every.
The
Oh, I know
connect.
this person because you enter this
Literally,
so
my
many.
life passion is to connect people.
Yeah, you enter so many rooms and not everybody remembers their girlfriends or their sisters. It's like, oh, hey, I met such and such. I think that would be good for you on this. Oh, I met such and such. So I think we all have to have this Ubuntu. Um,
Yeah, I urge everyone to do this, because the more in proximity to power you become, the more you bring other people along, the more powerful you become, because nobody's position is always maintained or what's the word, guaranteed. So you may have brought somebody along, but then that becomes your community. And when you look at wealthy communities, no one understands that better than them. And we as Africans need to really start doing that too. I am who I am because of who you are. And the more we do that and bring each other along and put each other on without like jealousy or restraint, we can go so far. We can create so much. We can do so much. We can break all those what we call generational curses, which are just patterns. We can break all those patterns and behaviors and do so much more.
Thank you, sis. Thank you. I appreciate you for making time.
I appreciate you
listen, I
so
know
much.
it's late
Seriously,
for you.
amazing.
So I am so grateful that you made time to inspire us as always, to teach us. Yes. You are amazing.
I'm so happy.
You are amazing.
You're amazing. You are just phenomenal for creating this podcast. Let me tell you, like, look at how far you've come with this podcast. And I just think,
can you believe?
I know. Can you believe it? How does it feel?
Oh my God. I think I'm still sleeping in this whole thing because I have my head down, still going. I haven't really seen what is happening. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
People
I challenge you.
People still nudge me and tell me, can you see this? Can you see that? But I truly, I don't think I've had time to sit in it and really.
I challenge you to a reflection every month on like your journey. It's really like important for humbling you and for the gratitude, because like I said, when you see yourself only failing, you fail to see just how much you've done. You fail to see just how much you've overcome. You think it's normal because you just keep going and going. But I think it's really important to reflect and look at like just what you've achieved and just imagine how many lives you've touched with this podcast. Powerful.
I think that's the part that scares me.
No, don't be scared. I feel like if they say if your business doesn't scare you, your idea doesn't scare you, then it's not like important.
Yeah. But thank you,
I
sis.
feel like it should scare you. You should be scared
I
of
am. I am. I truly am.
something
That's why
that
it's
your
very humbling for
passion,
me when people
because you
like
give your all to it. You give yourself to it. Yeah.
when people pass compliments, I'm like very shy about it. So this internet is
This
just
is what you're meant to be doing, Nancy, and I'm so proud of you.
thank you, sis. Thank you for
Don't
everything.
be shy, be proud. Don't be shy, be proud and own your story manual. True. Somebody else's survival manual. Somebody is going to use Concrete Pastures as a manual for how to start their own podcast as a migrant, how to, take this, put their next foot in front of the other, just because they happen to listen to an episode.
Yeah.
Literally. Do you know how powerful that is? So own that power that God has put in you, that you can do that, and that you chose to take one step, even though you didn't know where that step would lead. You just put one foot in front of the other. That's powerful. You need to own that story.
Thank you. I will. I definitely will. I will. I have to live in it. Thank you so much.
You have to. You have to. The more powerful you are, the more you will see ideas flowing to you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, always so inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for
having me today.
Yay.